You know why the playoffs are sudden death? Because David Craig and Darryl Turner had the secret formula to knock off the world champion Raiders. And before you knew it, the Seahawks had smothered any hopes of another Jim Plunkett miracle. Seattle moves on to Miami. As for Eric Dickerson and the Rams, when you live on the wings of a thoroughbred, you die by getting tripped up down the home stretch. Phil Simms and the Giants clawed and scrapped their way into the divisional playoffs. It's on to San Francisco. It's survival of the fittest as the playoffs hit the NFL.
And now from our HBO studios in New York, here are your hosts, Len Dawson and Nick Bonaconti.
Hello, everybody. Giants were concerned. He was contained. And when you contain Eric Dickerson, you usually beat the Rams.
The Los Angeles Rams opened the wild card round of the NFC with home field advantage and perhaps a little psychological edge as well. After all, they had whipped their opponents, the erratic New York Giants, 33-12 in Week 5, and were confidently running toward a repeat victory, especially when they have workhorse Eric Dickerson, the league's leading rusher in their offensive stable. Teams have been on the lookout for the thoroughbred runner all season, but most have been unable to tighten the reins around him. New York has its own shining star in Lawrence Taylor, who saw to it that Dickerson had to fight for every yard he got, as the stingy Giant defense was in a very combative mood. The daring Giants never lost their heads about how to contain Dickerson and limited number 29 to a mere 37 yards in the first half of play. Dickerson's offensive exploits are certainly not hearsay. The only thing this running back heard all day were footsteps. But Dickerson wasn't the only prey for the ravenous Giant defenders. Quarterback Jeff Kemp was a tempting target for New York as well. The game plan of the Giant defense was to prevent Dickerson from gaining his momentum. Unfortunately, lack of momentum also spread to the Giant offense, despite the efforts of quarterback Phil Simms and Zeke Moaz, number 84. The Giants fared no better on the ground against the Rams' number 3 ranked rush defense in the league. Defense on both sides set the tempo for this game, and it seemed like only a big play would break things open. Eric Dickerson is a big play specialist, but this wasn't exactly what he had in mind. Dickerson's fumble was recovered by the Giants and set up the first touchdown of the game. Phil Simms sported a hot hand as he spotted an open Bob Johnson, number 88. weren't conceding 6 points without making Rob Carpenter work for his lone yard. The Giants came up empty on 2 straight attempts, but this is a more determined club than the one which previously faced the Rams and gained only 8 total yards rushing. By the 3rd try, Carpenter had sufficiently honed his hurdling skills. The Giants mounted a 10-0 lead, but when they looked to inflate that total, the Rams quickly and decisively moved to burst that bubble. Carl Ecker, number 55, did some exploding of his own right through the Giant line, sending Phil Simms to an abrupt crash landing. Meanwhile, the Ram offense, which was having its own trouble taking off, gained some altitude with a new twist. Dickerson blocking and Kemp throwing to Ron Brown, number 89, who put forth his best whirling dervish imitation. Brown turned in a strong effort, but the Rams only managed a 38-yard Mike Lansford field goal. Still, Los Angeles refused to throw in the towel to the Giants, who led 10-3 at halftime. New York had succeeded in shutting down the explosive Dickerson for 30 minutes. But coach Bill Parcells knew better than to let his players become complacent. Not when he's sitting on a potential time bomb, which could detonate at any moment.
At the end of the first half, I think you can tell by the expression on Rams defensive end Jack Youngblood that he is concerned, and he should be. There are a couple of things that are quite obvious to me. First of all, I think everybody knew that going into the game, Youngblood had a back injury problem. The Giants knew that. They were aiming their game plan right at him, running at him. It was working. Jack Youngblood was ineffective in the first half. Nick, for Jack Youngblood, you know, playing in pain is nothing new, but this time he just couldn't get the job done.
You know, Lenny, no one wants to finish their career on a losing note. But for Jack Youngblood, this year has been very, very difficult because he is suffering an awful lot of pain from the injuries. And he always said that he would know when it was time to quit. And who knows, this may be that time. Lenny, I look at the defensive coach's decision to leave Jack Youngblood into that ball game against the Giants when he knew that Youngblood, because of his injury, could not have the mobility or the strength needed against that Giant offensive line.
Well, I know exactly what you're talking about. Youngblood is an inspiration to that football team. And a good example of that was in that goal line stand. The Rams stopped the Giants from scoring twice on the 1-yard line. And I noticed Jack Youngblood going down the line of scrimmage talking to all of his defensive teammates saying, hey, please give it one more shot. Get in there, stop him one more time. The irony of the whole thing is that the Giants did score by running right over Jack Youngblood. Going into the second half, quarterback Phil Simms knew he was in a defensive battle, and he knew one thing he couldn't afford to do, make a mistake. And he didn't.
Led by the accurate short-range passing of Phil Simms, the Giants opened the second half by scoring on their first 2 offensive series. Because he kept 1 and sometimes 2 backs as pass protectors, Simms had plenty of pocket time. On both drives, Simms was aided by fine catches by receivers Zeke Moad and Lionel Manuel, number 86. All season, the New York air attack has been vertical, meaning medium to long passes downfield. Sunday against the Rams, Simms threw underneath the coverage of the Rams' fine secondary into the seams, where there was room to roam. Both Giant drives stalled near the Los Angeles 20. Kicker Ali Haji Sheikh atoned for his disastrous early season inconsistency by hitting a perfect 3 for 3 from the field. It brought the Giants' point total to 16. On LA's first possession of the second half, a long Jeff Kemp pass intended for Drew Hill produced a controversial interference call on safety Terry Kennard, number 43. The disputed call resulted in a 45-yard gain, the longest by far of the day for the home team, and provided the input for the Rams' first and only touchdown of the sunny afternoon, when Eric Dickerson, held in check up to this point, sailed through left tackle untouched. the heralded Dickerson is in full stride, running with his head held high. He is nearly unstoppable. On the Rams' next series, the first of the fourth quarter, it appeared the NSC's Player of the Year would go all the way when, behind picture-perfect blocking, he hurdled one defender, then burst into the clear down the right sideline. But Terry Kennard, number 43, made one of the two critical defensive plays of the day for the Giants. Kennard's shoestring tackle turned a potential 58-yard touchdown into a 24-yard run that brought nothing but frustration for the Rams. In one of the most puzzling decisions by an NFL coach in many moons, John Robinson, with his team perched on the brink of the go-ahead touchdown, elected to give the ball to someone other than Eric Dickerson. On the single most important play of the day, blocking back Dwayne Crutchfield, number 45, was stopped dead in his tracks by Leonard Marshall, number 70. The biggest play of the defensive end's two-year pro career, and it took the steam out of Los Angeles' impressive drive. The Rams were forced to settle for 3 points instead of the 7 that would have given them the lead. When the Giants' Joe Morris burst through the line for a 61-yard run, it appeared New York had cemented the playoff victory. Holding penalty wiped out the big play and gave the Californians one last chance for a wild card win. But the Los Angeles attack couldn't get on track, and with one snap left, Jeff Kemp went to the sidelines to confer with the Ram Brain Trust for the last time in 1984. It was appropriate that number 56, the great linebacker Lawrence Taylor, made the play that snuffed out the Rams' final hopes. Nowhere are those dashed dreams better symbolized than the weathered face of Jack Youngblood. Fittingly, in this stadium in Anaheim, California, just down the road from Disneyland, where dreams are sold, the surprising New York Giants fulfilled a fantasy of their own. An all-expense paid